I held the envelope in my hands, and my entire world stopped. The hospital corridor was buzzing with activity, nurses rushing past, phones ringing in the distance, but all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. My husband Lucas stood in front of me, his face pale, his eyes wild with something I'd never seen before. Fear, panic, guilt. He reached out and snatched the paper from my trembling fingers before I could even process what I was reading. "This test is wrong," he said, his voice sharp and desperate. "I already fixed it." Fixed it? What did that even mean? Behind him, I saw his mother Maya standing in the doorway, her arms crossed, a strange smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Not a warm smile. Not the smile of a grandmother excited about her grandchild. Something else entirely. Something cold. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. My throat felt tight, my chest heavy. And then I saw it, the edge of another envelope peeking out from Maya's designer purse. A different envelope, a different test. That's when I knew. Someone had lied. Someone had changed the results. And someone in that hallway was about to lose everything. They just didn't know it yet. The questions hit me all at once, like a wave I couldn't stop. Why was Lucas so terrified? Why was he holding a DNA test that I didn't even know existed? And why was his mother involved in something that should have been between him and me? I looked down at my stomach, 6 months pregnant, and felt a chill run through my body. This was supposed to be the happiest time of our lives. We'd tried for over a year to conceive. I decorated the nursery myself, choosing soft yellow paint because we wanted to be surprised by the gender. Lucas had seemed excited, or at least I thought he had. But now, standing in that hospital hallway, watching him clutch that paper like it was evidence of a crime, I realized I didn't know my husband at all. "What's going on?" I finally managed to whisper. He didn't answer. He just turned and walked away, Maya following close behind him, her heels clicking against the linoleum floor. I stood there alone, my hand instinctively moving to my belly, feeling my baby kick. Someone wanted to erase my child. Someone wanted to pretend this baby didn't belong to us. And the worst part, the reason had nothing to do with love. It had nothing to do with family. It had everything to do with money, power, and a secret that went back decades. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when everything still felt possible. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. I met Lucas 3 years ago at a charity fundraiser in downtown Boston. I was serving tables to help pay for my nursing school tuition. He was there with his family, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent. We locked eyes across the room, and somehow, against all odds, he asked for my number. My grandmother had raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 8. She taught me to be kind, to work hard, and to never apologize for where I came from. But Lucas's family, especially his mother Maya, made it very clear from the start that I wasn't good enough, not rich enough, not connected enough, not their kind. Maya had a way of smiling at me in public while whispering cutting remarks when no one else could hear. Lucas could have married anyone, she'd say, adjusting her pearl necklace. "I hope you understand what a gift this is for you." I tried to ignore it. I loved Lucas, and I believed he loved me. We got married in a small ceremony, much to Maya's disappointment. She'd wanted a grand wedding at the country club, but Lucas had insisted it was our day, our choice. That was back when I still thought he stood up for me. The first year of marriage was beautiful, We laughed, we traveled, we dreamed about the future. But slowly, cracks started to appear. Lucas began controlling our finances, saying it was easier if he managed everything, since he understood investments. He'd take phone calls in the other room and close the door. His family would whisper when I entered a room, then go silent. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was imagining things. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And then, in my 7th month of pregnancy, I heard something I was never meant to hear. It was a Tuesday evening, and I'd come home early from a doctor's appointment. The house was supposed to be empty. Lucas had said he was working late, and Maya never visited without calling first. But as I walked through the front door, I heard voices coming from Lucas's study. Angry voices. I froze in the hallway, my hand still on the doorknob, listening. If the baby isn't ours, the inheritance isn't either. That was Maya's voice, sharp and clear. Mother, please. You're being irrational. Lucas sounded exhausted, defeated. Irrational. Your grandfather's will was very specific. Lucas, the heir must be blood. Pure blood. Do you understand what that means? I felt my legs go weak. What inheritance? What will? Lucas had mentioned his grandfather briefly, an old real estate mogul who'd passed away 5 years before I met him, but he'd never talked about money or inheritance. I pressed myself against the wall, barely breathing, trying to hear more. We'll figure it out, Lucas said quietly. Raymond is coming tomorrow to review the documents. We just need to make sure everything is in order. Raymond. I'd never heard that name before. The next day, I pretended everything was normal. I made breakfast, kissed Lucas goodbye, and waited. Sure enough, at exactly 10 in the morning, a black Mercedes pulled into our driveway. A man in his 60s stepped out, carrying a leather briefcase. He looked like every powerful attorney you've ever seen in movies. Expensive suit, cold eyes. I watched from the upstairs window as Maya greeted him at the door. They disappeared into the study. I knew I shouldn't, but I crept down the hallway and positioned myself just outside the door. What I heard next changed everything. The trust is ironclad. Raymond's voice was measured and professional. Only a biological heir can inherit. If there's any question about paternity, the entire estate reverts to the foundation. We're talking about $42 million and 3 properties. $42 million. My mouth went dry. Lucas had told me his family was comfortable, but he'd never mentioned anything like this. So what do we do? Maya asked. We make absolutely certain the child is his, Raymond replied. And if there's any doubt at all, we handle it before the birth. Handle it. Those words echoed in my head for days. What did that mean? Were they planning to force me to take a DNA test? Were they going to try to take my baby? I felt sick, betrayed, and utterly alone. That's when I decided I needed to know the truth for myself. I waited until Lucas left for a business trip to New York. He'd be gone for 3 days. That gave me just enough time. I found a private clinic an hour outside the city, a place that advertised complete confidentiality. I used cash I'd been saving from my part-time job at the hospital, money Lucas didn't know about. The clinic was small and sterile, smelling of antiseptic and anxiety. The receptionist, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, handed me paperwork without making eye contact. I used a fake name, Sarah Mitchell. It felt strange, lying about who I was, but I couldn't risk anyone finding out. The test itself was simple, a quick cheek swab, a vial of blood, and then I had to provide a sample from Lucas. I'd taken his toothbrush from home, carefully sealed it in a plastic bag. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the pen to sign the forms. Results in 5 business days, the receptionist said, handing me a receipt. I folded it small and tucked it into my shoe, terrified someone would find it. The drive home felt like it took hours. Every car behind me looked suspicious. Every phone call felt like someone was watching. I was being paranoid, I told myself, but the paranoia was justified, because what I didn't know was that the clinic receptionist had a cousin who worked for Maya's country club. And that cousin made a phone call that same afternoon. By the time I got home, my secret was no longer secret at all. Lucas came back 2 days early. I heard the front door slam, heard his footsteps heavy on the stairs, and before I could even get up from the couch, he was standing in the living room waving papers in the air. His face was red, his eyes blazing with anger I'd never seen before. "You went behind my back," he shouted. "You had a DNA test done?" I stared at him in shock. How did he know? I hadn't even gotten my results yet. "Lucas, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you don't trust me? That you think I'd question whether this baby is mine." He threw the papers onto the coffee table. They scattered across the surface, and I could see official-looking letterhead, lab results, percentages. "The test says the baby isn't mine, Sarah. Or should I say, whoever you really are." My heart stopped. That wasn't possible. I hadn't cheated. I'd never even looked at another man. This baby was his. I knew it with every fiber of my being. I reached for the papers, my hands trembling, but Lucas grabbed them back. Maya appeared in the doorway then, as if she'd been waiting for her cue. She had that same cold smile on her face, the one I'd seen at the hospital. "I told you she wasn't trustworthy," Maya said softly, looking at Lucas. "Gold diggers always have a backup plan." "I'm not a gold digger," I shouted, my voice breaking. "Lucas, I didn't cheat on you. I swear to God. I never." "Then explain the test," he interrupted, his voice cold now, distant. "Explain how the baby has a 0% match to me." I couldn't explain it because I hadn't gotten my real results yet. These papers he was holding, this test he was citing, I'd never seen them before in my life. "Where did you get that?" I demanded. "What clinic did that come from?" But he wouldn't answer. He just kept looking at me like I was a stranger, like the past 3 years meant nothing. Maya stepped forward, placing a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "We'll give you until tomorrow to pack your things," she said, "and we'll be filing for divorce immediately." That night, I locked myself in the guest room and cried until I couldn't breathe. My phone buzzed with messages from Lucas's family lawyer, already preparing paperwork. But at midnight, there was a knock on my door. A soft, hesitant knock. When I opened it, I saw someone I never expected. Someone who would change everything. Her name was Harper, and she was a nurse at the clinic where I'd done my test. She was young, maybe late 20s, with kind eyes and nervous hands that kept twisting together. "I'm so sorry to come here like this," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder like she was afraid someone followed her. "But I had to. What they did, it's not right." She handed me a sealed manila envelope, still official, still stamped with the clinic's logo. "These are your real results, the ones that came back from the lab." My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I might pass out. I tore open the envelope with shaking hands, and there, in black and white, was the truth. Mother, match confirmed. Father, Lucas Bennett, match confirmed. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. I looked up at Harper, tears streaming down my face. Then what was Lucas holding? What test was he showing me? Harper's expression darkened. "A fake 1. Your mother-in-law paid someone at our clinic to create false results. I saw the whole thing. She came in 3 days ago, met with my supervisor in his office. I heard her offer him $10,000. He took it. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Maya had fabricated an entire DNA test to destroy my marriage, to get rid of me, to make Lucas believe I betrayed him. But why? Why would she go to such lengths? Harper pulled out a folded piece of paper from her coat pocket. "There's more," she said quietly. "I did some digging after I saw what she did. I found this in your husband's file. I shouldn't have accessed it, and I could lose my job, but you deserve to know." She handed me the paper, and as I read it, everything suddenly made horrible, perfect sense. Lucas Bennett was adopted. He'd been adopted at birth by Richard and Maya Bennett, a private adoption arranged through a lawyer, all records sealed. Maya had known all along. Lucas had never been told. And if the truth came out, if anyone discovered that Lucas wasn't a biological Bennett, the inheritance would be gone. The $42 million, the properties, the legacy, everything his grandfather had built would go to a charity foundation instead. They weren't trying to deny my baby. They were protecting their lie by making it look like I'd cheated. By claiming my baby wasn't Lucas's, they could push me out before anyone started asking real questions about Lucas's own bloodline. I sat on the edge of the bed holding that paper until the sun came up, reading it over and over, trying to process what it meant. Lucas didn't know he was adopted. His entire identity, his entire life was built on a lie, and Maya had been keeping that secret for 34 years, terrified that one day the truth would surface. I thought about all the strange comments she'd made over the years, how she'd always emphasized bloodlines and heritage, how she'd been obsessed with Lucas marrying someone from their social circle, someone whose family history she could verify, how she'd reacted with such hostility when I got pregnant, not with joy, but with suspicion. It had never been about me at all. It had been about protecting the fortune, protecting the illusion. I heard Lucas moving around downstairs, probably making coffee, probably preparing to have another confrontation with me. My first instinct was to run downstairs and show him everything, to prove my innocence, to expose his mother's cruelty. But something stopped me. If I told him right now, in his current state of anger and confusion, would he even believe me? Or would Maya convince him I'd fabricated these documents out of desperation? I needed a plan. I needed evidence that couldn't be disputed. I needed to record the truth. So I made a decision that would either save my marriage or end it forever. I was going to confront them both, together, with my phone recording every word that evening. I waited until that evening when I knew Maya would come over. She always came over on Thursday nights for dinner, a tradition Lucas insisted on maintaining. I'd cooked, though my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the knife to chop vegetables. We sat down at the dining table, the three of us, and the tension was suffocating. Lucas wouldn't look at me. Maya kept dabbing her mouth with her napkin, that satisfied smile never quite leaving her face. "I have something to show you both," I said quietly, pulling out the sealed envelope Harper had given me. The real DNA test results. Lucas's head snapped up. "What are you talking about? I already saw the results." "No," I said, my voice stronger now. "You saw fake results. Results your mother paid $10,000 to have fabricated." I slid the papers across the table. Lucas grabbed them, his eyes scanning the page, confusion, and then shock crossing his face. "This says I'm the father." "Because you are the father," I said, tears burning in my eyes. "I never cheated on you, Lucas. I never would. Your mother lied to you." Maya stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is absurd. You clearly forged these. I didn't forge anything, I interrupted, pulling out my phone and setting it on the table. And I have a witness, a nurse from the clinic who saw everything, who heard everything. Maya's face went pale. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked genuinely afraid. Lucas was staring at the papers, then at his mother, then back at me. Mother, what is she talking about? But I wasn't done. I pulled out the second document, the one about his adoption, and placed it in front of him. There's more, Lucas. Something your mother has been hiding from you your entire life. He picked up the papers slowly, his hands trembling, now too. I watched his face as he read, watched the color drain from his cheeks, watched his entire world collapse in real time. I'm adopted. His voice was barely a whisper. This says I'm adopted. Maya moved toward him, reaching out, but he jerked away from her touch. Lucas, please let me explain. Explain what? His voice was rising now, cracking with emotion. Explain how you've lied to me for 34 years? Explain how you tried to destroy my marriage to protect a secret? Explain how you were willing to make me believe my wife cheated on me, that my child wasn't mine, all so you could keep your precious inheritance. If they find out you're not a biological heir, we lose everything. Maya's voice was desperate now, all pretense of composure gone. The trust, the properties, everything your grandfather built. It all goes away. I did this to protect you, to protect our family. By destroying my family? Lucas stood up, the chair falling backward behind him. By making me hate my wife? By making me question my own child? I could see him processing everything, see him replaying every conversation, every moment, every red flag he'd ignored. You made me believe she betrayed me, he said, his voice breaking. You made me look at her like she was nothing. Maya tried to speak, but Lucas held up his hand. Get out of my house. Lucas, get out, he shouted. Maya looked at me one last time, her expression a mix of hatred and defeat, before grabbing her purse and walking toward the door. But I had one more thing I needed to confirm. The inheritance, I said, stopping her. You knew all along that if anyone questioned his paternity, if anyone started looking into his background, the truth about his adoption would come out. So you tried to frame me first, make it look like I was the liar, make it look like I was the threat. She didn't deny it. She just walked out, the door closing behind her with a soft click. Lucas collapsed back into his chair, his head in his hands. I stood there, my phone still recording, capturing his confession, his mother's admission, everything we'd need for what came next. The next 3 months were the hardest of my life, but also the most freeing. I filed for custody with the real DNA test as evidence, along with the recording of that dinner. Lucas's family lawyer tried to argue, tried to spin the story, but the truth was undeniable. Lucas and I didn't divorce, but we separated while he worked through therapy, processing the betrayal, the lies, the life he thought he knew. Maya lost everything. The legal battle over the inheritance exposed the adoption records, and just as she'd feared, the trust reverted to the charitable foundation. The money she'd fought so hard to protect was gone. But here's what I learned through all of this. Truth is more valuable than any inheritance. Love built on lies will always crumble, but love built on honesty, even painful honesty, has a chance to survive. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl 3 months after that dinner. Lucas was there, holding my hand, crying as she took her first breath. We named her Grace because grace is what we both needed to heal. I stand now in the nursery we painted together, holding my daughter, watching the sunset through the window, And I think about everything that almost was, the lies that almost destroyed us, the secret that almost erased my child. But the truth won. The truth always wins, even when it costs everything. And as I look down at Grace's perfect face, her father's eyes, her grandmother's nose, I whisper to her the words I wish someone had whispered to me when I was lost and afraid. You were always enough. It was never about you. It was about their fear. And you, my beautiful girl, will never have to carry the weight of someone else's lies. So I ask you, what would you do if your partner changed your baby's DNA test? If the people you trusted most betrayed you for money, for status, for pride, would you fight for the truth, even if it meant losing everything? Or would you walk away? Because sometimes the hardest choice is also the only one that sets you free. Let me know in the comments what you think. Have you ever discovered a secret that changed your entire life? How did you handle it? And remember, the truth might hurt, but lies hurt forever.